Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and I want to talk about The Last of Us season finale, Last of Us season 1, season finale from HBO Max, and I want to talk about the ramifications for Dungeons and Dragons from Last of Us finishing its season. All right, so spoilers for all of season 1 of Last of Us, and possibly for the video game, for all the video games as well. Just want to give you a heads up there. So, first of all, why discuss Dungeons and Dragons in context to The Last of Us? Well, increasingly, I'm incredibly interested in the battle, right? The cultural and commercial skirmish between D&D, the OSR, and the Indies. For 2023, the Indies are off the board. They have nothing that matters. None of their numbers are significant. The OSR has some possible, Project Black Flag, Shadow Dark RPG. They have some real attempts to unseat Dungeons and Dragons, and they're on the board as competitors, right? So when we talk about Dungeons and Dragons, the thing I love about Dungeons and Dragons is specifically, the thing I really love about Dungeons and Dragons specifically is Billion Dollar Bravo. It has Billion Dollar Bravo, and it should be discussed in context to Billion Dollar Bravo. What is Billion Dollar Bravo? It's American capitalism running on all cylinders, right? And the OSC and the Indies don't get to be involved in this conversation. They don't have blockbusters. Their companies aren't reported on, by financial reporting structures in America. They're not connected to multi-billion-dollar properties. And Dungeons & Dragons is connected to multiple multi-billion-dollar properties. Funko Pop, Magic the Gathering, Lego, all of those carry products, terrain, minis, actual Dungeons & Dragons components, right? And Billion Dollar Bravo is real for Dungeons & Dragons. And Last of Us is genuine Billion Dollar Bravo, right? And so Dungeons & Dragons can look at other billion-dollar properties and take ideas from them, and I think that's why I want to discuss Last of Us in context to Dungeons & Dragons. So let's do it. All right. So let's talk this through. So what happened with Last of Us? So first of all, I want to say this. A wise rapper once said, "My milkshake brings all the boys to the yard, and their life is better than yours." Right? And the Last of Us, that milkshake brought everybody to the yard, in that my entire family watched together every single episode of Last of Us when it premiered at 9 p.m. on Sunday night for every single show, right? This was premiere, event viewing, and I cannot tell you how rare premiere event viewing is for anything today, right? So my youngest son, who still lives in the house, my other three are out of the house at this point, and so my youngest son and my wife watched with me, that's incredible, and we really enjoyed it, right? So one, this is what you want for Dungeons & Dragons. You want a story that is bringing people every week, and they're saying, I'm not going to miss anything else in my life. Nothing else in my life is going to preempt this, right? Unless I'm sick or there's some kind of emergency. This is where I want to be. This is the story I'm engaged with, right? And that's what we're going for with Last of Us. Achieved every single thing we are going for with our Dungeons & Dragons, okay? Second, what else was it? It was an alignment story, right? Gary Gygax was like, hey, I see your silly little war games over there. I see your silly little board games over there. He didn't know CCGs were coming, right? That's part of tabletop games today, right? And he's like, I'm going to sweep all that off the board. I don't want to talk about cutting goblins in half. I want to talk about good and evil, and that's what Last of Us was all about, right? In this last finale, the following questions came up, right? Is it okay to kill a child? I don't understand why this should even be a question, and I don't understand why there's any debate coming out of Last of Us. No, it's not. Ellie is a child. It was absolutely wrong for the Fireflies to even consider killing her. I don't care if you could save the whole world from a disease. You don't kill a child. This is non-debatable, right? If you're in the good alignment, right? Are you a good person or are you an evil person? And Gary said, you do not sit at the D&D table without looking at your character sheet and seeing right on it, I am a good person or I am an evil person. He made the decision black and white, stark, right? And that's the story that Last of Us is saying. Is it good to trade a child's life to save humanity from a plague that is haunting it and taking thousands of lives, if not millions of lives, every year, right? It was an alignment question, right? Joel lies to Ellie, right, so that she can be free and live a life unburdened by the fact that her blood would save everybody on the planet. But he's like, she's a child. She has no ability to make this decision with any type of wisdom. I am her protector, and I will take this decision from her, and I will lie to her. That is an alignment question. Was that good or was that evil? That was an alignment question, right? We also find out that Joel attempted to self-delete, right? Used a short arm. You have long arms and short arms, right? A slug propelling tool, and used it on his own head and failed, right? And it's a huge alignment question. Is this an act of selfishness? Is this an act of self-determination, right? Alignment questions. And this is where we arrive with The Last of Us. The Last of Us is an absolutely powerful template to say, this is what we do with Dungeons and Dragons, right? We ask alignment questions that matter. We ask questions and we make decisions with our characters that will be talked about the day after the game and will be debated for weeks, months, or years, because they are alignment questions. They have nothing to do with cutting a goblin in half, right? And this is the point. Dungeons & Dragons can allow us to do this, to ask these incredibly difficult, incredibly challenging moral alignment questions. And because we're dungeon masters, we can target these down to the nth degree, like straight down to where it gets very personal for our players, right? And where we can truly impact their lives, in my humble opinion. So I really feel, having finished Last of Us, it's every Dungeon Master content for 18-year-olds and above, not between 12 and 18. You guys aren't old enough to watch this yet. And it's a model for what we need to be doing with our tabletop role-playing games, asking real questions, attaching Dungeons & Dragons to Billion Dollar Bravo, and also making content that is an event, right? It's not just another sad sack, oh, can you jump on Skype? You're here, you're at the table, you are meaningful to me, I am meaningful to you. We have an actual relationship, we have a proximal relationship, we have a meaningful relationship, we have a growing relationship, right? A real relationship. This is D&D at the table, D&D that matters, D&D that asks the alignment questions that Gary Gygax slammed into the earth in 1974. And everybody who cares about Dungeons & Dragons and thinks that Dungeons & Dragons matters, and it's not just, let's tell another story about cutting a goblin in half, this is where we arrive, right? And I really feel that Last of Us is a template for it. If you haven't watched it, you got to watch it. If you have, I really want to know what you thought of Last of Us. Is there any takeaways that we can bring into Dungeons & Dragons that I didn't mention? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.